Welcome to the Decoding Phase Transitions, the DPD podcast. I am your host Sananda Biswas, and here we decode the career phases of brilliant minds in academia and beyond. Our today's guest is Professor Sebastiano Pilati, a computational physicist who is currently working as an associate professor at the University of Camerino, Italy. Sebastiano began his academic journey at the University of Trento, where he completed his bachelor's and master's degrees in physics. This was followed by a PhD degree from the same university, during which he spent his first year at the Polytechnic University of Catalonia in Spain. As a PhD student, he worked on the fundamental questions in condensed matter physics, building the strong theoretical and computational foundations that continue to shape his research today. After his PhD, Sebastiano gained international research experience through a series of positions across Europe. He worked as a postdoctoral fellow at ETH Zurich and spent time as a Ludwig Boltzmann postdoctoral fellow at International Center for Theoretical Physics in Trieste and a research fellow at the University of Padova, before eventually joining the University of Camerino, where he now leads his own research group. His research interests are developing novel computer simulation methods for quantum many-body systems based on quantum Monte Carlo algorithms and on machine learning techniques. In this conversation, we explored the many phases of Sebastiano's scientific journey, starting from the early curiosity in physics, the books that sparked his interest, to the moment where he had to choose between two of his passions, physics and soccer. We talk about his experience in studying at the University of Trento, the role sports played in shaping his work ethic and mindset, and the fundamental principles that he believes are essential for learning anything deeply. Sebastiano also shared his research interests today, the growing role and future of AI in scientific research, and the importance of exposure, collaboration, and mentorship during the early stages of a scientific career. One message that comes through clearly in this episode is something Sebastiano emphasizes strongly. Technical skills alone are not enough in academia. Learning soft skills, communication, collaboration, resilience is equally important. Moreover, he reminds us not to be afraid of challenges or even failure, because these are the moments where the most important learnings happen. So let's dive into this conversation. This is Professor Sebastiano Pilati's Journey in Science on the DBT podcast. Welcome, Seba, to our podcast, Decoding Phase Transitions. We are so happy to have you here today. I would like to start from the beginning, your origin story. You are a physicist, and you somewhere along the line you have found your interest for science, math, or physics. What sparked the initial curiosity in you? And who were the role models or inspiring teachers, if there were any, that helped you to find your interest?
So thank you, Sananda, for having me here. So I think that the passion for physics started in high school, and probably mostly because it was the course that I felt like it was easier for me. So I was doing well. Well, in general, I was doing reasonably well in school, but especially in scientific courses and physics in particular. And then I think that my curiosity increased after reading a couple of books that actually I just found that them at home. I think my brother was reading them. And one influential book was by Feynman. I think the title in Italian was La legge fisica. Probably the title in English is The Character of Physics Law, I guess. And then I read something from by Stephen Hawking. And yes, then I was very curious, and physics felt interesting to me. And then I was doing well in school in that course, and so it felt kind of natural to when I had to choose which degree I had to go to for college to enroll in the physics course and to get a physics degree. And another episode was that I participated once in these physics Olympics.
Oh,
Actually, it wasn't really even the physics Olympics that I didn't know anything about. But in my school, they organized a trial day for these physics Olympics, and I participated, and I did very well. And that motivated me. Actually, it gave me the confidence that if I tried to take a college degree in physics, then maybe I had some chances to succeed.
At which age was this?
It was in at the very end of, I think it was in the fourth year, so I was 17, probably. And yes, and then I decided to go to university and to enroll in a physics degree. Actually, it's not like I always had the passions for science. Of my childhood and let's say high school years were mostly devoted to sport activities. My big dream was to become a professional soccer player, and was trying actually. I was reasonably good, and I played at a decent level for that age. And so that was my main passion actually at that point. It's only when I understood that that path was not going too well. So I had to choose whether to be a very low level professional soccer player, which sounds good, but it's not that good because being a soccer player is a fantastic career if you can get to a reasonable level. Otherwise, you are just another worker with a career that is going to end at 35 years old. And so then I decided to take a different path and taking a physics degree. Actually, it felt like another challenge, and that's why I enrolled. Actually, yeah.
Does the realization that football will not take me farther in career and the decision to enroll for college, did it come simultaneously at the same point of time?
Almost. It's a gradual process. Okay, it's not like one day someone tells you will not become a soccer champion. You understand that, let's say, from the age of 15, you can see whether you are going up or not. And so then at the age of 16, 17, things become more and more clear. And yes, in the same years, I noticed that instead I was doing well with physics. I had a good teacher in high school. She was young and motivated, and that helped. Yeah. And so then when I went to college, I put all of my energies into studying physics and getting high grades. I was very motivated, and I think that the high school years were a good training for me because I was always very busy with sport activities. I had to train essentially every day. I was busy on Saturday, on Sunday, with soccer. So always had to compress the time devoted to studying. And so then when I went to college, I still played soccer, but more at an amateur level. So it was just a hobby at that point. But I was used to working hard because getting to the end of a physics degree, at least in Italy, it's not easy. It was even more difficult back then, I think. Now we see that I know that here in the universities we have more pressure to try not to lose students. And so we cannot be too harsh with the grades. And we have to keep the failure rate at exams below a reasonable level. And well, it's not compulsory, but we have some pressures in order to try to help the students getting to the degree, and that's reasonable. In the past, I think teachers could just keep the standards they wanted. Maybe sometimes it was too hard, sometimes was just the right thing to do.
Was it easy, Sebastiano, to enroll yourself in the college? Was the school degree enough?
Was enough, yes. There were no tests, and it's still like that. I mean, in Italy, I mean, we don't have many students that want to enroll in a physics degree. Now, what happens is that typically at the end of the first year, the number of students enrolled in the physics degree drops, maybe by 40, even 50%. The percentage was the same when I enrolled. We started, I think we were maybe 40 students, and at the beginning of the second year, maybe we were 20. So enrolling was open, and I had to take no tests. But I knew, and everyone knew that it was going to be hard to get to the degree.
You said you worked hard to get the degree. Did the discipline from soccer help in some way? What did the playing soccer for such a high level at a young age? What disciplines or what skill sets could you transfer to your studies when it came to physics?
Well, I mean, when you play in any sports at a reasonable level, at first it's easy because maybe you have some predisposition and the entry level is always easy. And then you start competing with better and better opponents and it becomes a challenge. The trainings are hard. Then in Italy, the issue is that sport activities are not well coordinated with school. Actually, the sport club is a different institute. It has nothing to do with your school. And the school doesn't care that you have these activities. So you have to find your way to manage the timing. So I think that the main thing was being able to manage my timing and organizing my work, my schedule, being fast in doing what is reasonable to be done in short time, and also not being afraid of the challenges of failing. You get used to manage pressure, and failing is not such a big thing because you in any sport you always fail from time to time. You find better opponents or you lose a game. So indeed, compared to other students, I think I had kind of better experience in college. I managed to focus on the part which is enjoyable. So I got passionate for every exam. When I had to prepare an exam, I focused only on that, and I always got to the level in which I liked that specific field. Yeah, hitting the target, but also learning to appreciate that specific field. When you study physics, it's not only physics. You have to study chemistry, electronics, programming, advanced mathematics, and usually it's not what you had signed up for. Okay, it's different. I mean, you wanted to do physics, and then you are studying electronics. But I got to the point in which I even enjoyed electronics, even though it was not in my it was not my plan. But I got deep into that, and so at the end of the day, I liked it.
So it seems like you enjoyed the process of learning, just to learn anything because you had a strategy, perhaps. What are the basic principles that can make someone, let's say, who at the beginning of their career fall in love or fall in love with the process of learning anything and get succeeded in it like you did?
Well, I think that the main thing is not being too scared by the difficulty. Okay, when you start learning, at first, at least for me, almost every subject I had to learn felt difficult, almost like reading a foreign language. But I wasn't scared. I went step by step. And I think that's it. That's the main thing: is not being too scared when you see the mountain in front of you. You should not be scared. You should just start walking and take intermediate targets. And yeah, that's it.
And hitting those targets can boost your confidence, I guess, in the process, right?
Yes, indeed, the confidence and even enjoyment comes step by step. Okay, at first, the learning process is it feels hard and it doesn't give you much. Okay, it's only when you start hitting some targets, when you have learned something, when stuff becomes more familiar to you, then you feel like life is easier and you are getting some rewards.
Sounds fantastic. And with this process, you actually came to the end of the physics degree in college, which is both, I guess, bachelor's and master's.
Well, look, I'm old enough. So in Italy, until at least actually my cohort of students, we had a system where there was only one degree.
That is the diploma it used to be called, or what?
It's called the Laurea. It was just
Laurea,
called the
okay, yeah.
Laurea. And that was one degree. It was actually maybe better because I think the division between bachelor and master degree is a bit artificial. Then, after my cohort of students, and the next year they have changed the system, and now it's more. It's actually we have the same standard in Europe, so it's 3+2, a bachelor of 3 years and a master of 2 years. At that time, it was only one degree, and that's it. So at least you only had one big path, one long path. It's true that many students got lost. Okay, I mean, as I told you, when we started the first year, we were 40 or 50 students. Only a few of them got to the end.
True. I think also another podcast guest from Germany, I think he was also at the same time when the courses were integrated like this, bachelor's, master's. This was Andreas Kreisel. He also talked about the same thing that people were dropping out and very fast because they could not keep up to the challenges that appeared in front of them. And especially when the transition from school to the college was so easy, coming to the college and to choose a physics degree and not knowing what to expect, that actually led to this kind of dropouts. So by that end of that whole program, you had somehow found your way towards the condensed matter physics. Is it correct?
Yeah, it is.
How did that happen? What was about condensed matter physics that attracted you among the big umbrella of physics that offers so many subject areas?
Well, I think in my case, at some point I got passionate about computer simulations. And then, I mean, in my university, there were courses which allowed you to get more experienced with computer simulations, mostly in that area, in condensed matter physics.
So you did it in University of Trento.
Trento, yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it is a natural association. So in condensed matter physics, usually we tackle many body problems, so complex systems with many particles involved. And so we often need computer simulations. Okay, so for me, it was mostly choosing a field in which I could do computer simulations, and condensed matter physics was ideal for that. And that is also a field which was quite strong in that university. So I had teachers like Lev Pitaevsky, who was teaching statistical mechanics. So that was actually my favorite subject. And I'm very happy and very proud that now I here in Camerino, I do teach the master course in statistical mechanics. So it feels like
coming to full circle. So this combination of influence from the university itself, being strong in that subject area, having so many inspiring professors at the same time, at the same place, inspired you to choose the condensed matter physics, which gave you this area where you can combine physics with computer science. Then came the decision to go forward and do a PhD. Was it a straightforward decision at that time, or did you consider other options in career?
Look, it was almost straightforward because at that point I was really deep into physics and academic research. I got good grades during the physics degree, and so I had this perception that it was the right thing to do. It was made sense, and so I asked around for opportunities to do a PhD, and in the same university they told me yes, you could start a PhD. There is an entrance exam, and was supposed to take the exam and hopefully pass it. And then actually the proposal was interesting for me because the idea was to do the PhD in Trento, but to spend 1 year as a visiting student in Barcelona. Okay. So this was the proposal. I mean, we had in mind a research project, which was about computer simulations of superfluids. And that was a research project in collaboration with Polytechnic University of Catalonia. And so it was already foreseen that, okay, I could have started maybe a PhD there, but with the idea of spending immediately 1 year in Barcelona. And that for me was a challenge that I had to accept in the sense that I did my undergraduate studies in my hometown. I was still living with my parents. And so at that point, I had seen, for example, many of my colleagues had enjoyed the Erasmus program. And so they had spent at least 6 months abroad. Others were applying for PhD programs abroad. I was still in my hometown, and then I had this opportunity to spend 1 year abroad. It didn't feel easy for me, to be honest. It was a bit scary, but I felt like that I had to face the challenge again. I couldn't say no. I was afraid to postpone that step any further, and so yes, I decided to go. Also taking into account the fact that there was this opportunity to go abroad.
It seems like you were anticipating a lot of challenges moving to Barcelona, though it's within Europe. It's not so much of a travel, but
Yeah.
obviously you may not come back to home every month. And setting, even though it seems nearer than like not being separated by continents, but it's still a different culture. So what are the cultural challenges that you faced there, and was the fear that you had before was much bigger than it was actually once you reached there?
Look, I wasn't afraid of meeting a different culture. I didn't expect Barcelona to be much different. Well, for me, it was a change because I grew up in a small village, okay, 2,000 inhabitants, and then I was moving towards Barcelona, which is a big city, a bit chaotic, and so that was the main change for me. I didn't expect to meet a completely different culture. Of course, I mean, it's tricky in Barcelona because it's in Spain, but it's also in Catalonia. So the local people speak Catalan. So in principle, you should learn two new languages to live there because, I mean, learning Spanish feels natural because it's a very common language. It's very useful.
But it's also very close to your mother tongue.
It is very close indeed. At the end of the day, it wasn't such a big challenge. I went there without having had any course of Spanish nor Catalan, and I did manage to learn the language in 2 to 3 months. Okay?
That's very fast.
That's fast. I mean, I know some Italians that have more talent for languages that can learn it even faster. But yet, I mean, for me, it was a change because I was going away from home. I was going abroad, and I had to learn a new language. And I don't think
the biggest challenge was maybe the setting up your own life in your own way and being responsible for everything. Right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. That's the thing. You have to find an apartment in a big city alone. You have to sign contracts. I didn't have any guidance. I have to say, well, I was lucky because I was going to work in a research group that was well known. My supervisor, to my master physics supervisor, and so I had, from the scientific point of view, a friendly environment. But then I was going to a new city by myself. And I have to say, I mean, I know that some people take that easily. It didn't feel easy for me at the beginning. And I knew it was going to be not that easy for me, even though for others, maybe for you, you have been traveling more than me and moving farther away from home. I know that it has not been super easy, but at that point I knew I have to learn, and so that's why.
I think it's not only you. I think for the anybody who is moving away from the parental shelter and protection for the first time, managing your life fully and planning your days and weeks and life around it. It's first time. I think it is challenging, and it's a lot of learning in the process. Apart from being in a new culture in itself, within your own culture also, it can be a little bit challenging. And then it seems that you had spent there 1 year then for collaboration scientifically. So, and it was a collaboration between University of Trento and
the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. Yeah.
So by then your research problem was set already, right? And if you can tell for our listeners, what was your research problem and what was the unique question in that process that you were aiming to solve?
Yeah. Okay. So It was again related to performing computer simulations. In particular, we were doing, and we are still doing, quantum Monte Carlo simulations. So, what we are trying to do is to simulate the properties of quantum matter. And the main challenge at that point was to perform a simulation which goes beyond the zero temperature limit. Okay, so there were already computer simulation techniques that worked very well for the ground state, which is indeed probably the main state that we study when we tackle quantum matter. But there are also many interesting effects due to temperature, and we wanted to improve the techniques that work at the final temperature. Okay? So from the algorithmic point of view, it was a well-defined question. And of course, we knew that many other scientists had already tackled that problem, and they had found some solutions, but there were still challenges. Particular for us, the problem was to simulate ultra cold atoms and Bose-Einstein condensates. Okay, so at that time, that was a very hot topic. It's still a hot topic of research, even though it moved further to more complex scenarios. And so, simulating ultra cold atoms at finite temperature and simulating the actual phase transition, so simulating the Bose-Einstein condensation on a classical computer was not easy, and that was one of the main challenges that I tackled in my PhD studies. So, for example, we computed the critical temperature for Bose-Einstein condensation in a system of interacting atoms. Okay, because the textbook theory deals with non-interacting atoms, but taking into account the effect of interaction is not easy. Other scientists had tackled that problem, but there were contrasting results. And I think we managed to do a good job because we had, there was this collaboration between the University of Trento and the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. We also collaborated with Nikolai Prokofiev from the University of Massachusetts, who had at that point invented an algorithm which has become famous in this field of computational physics, which is called worm algorithm. And so we implemented also that. And so, yes, it was an interesting challenge. And we managed to move the state of the art a little bit further, not much, but we managed to do something.
I know that your research also today evolves around the computational methods of probing the quantum matter and also ultra cold atomic physics and many body physics. Can you talk about, for a beginner, to give some idea, what are the core challenges? And let's also talk about what are the motivations to study this kind of field and the systems and the challenging questions there.
To a high school student, what I would say is that the matter that we see around us at the microscopic level is governed by the law of quantum mechanics. For example, we have this Schrödinger equation that we often have to solve. But solving that with the computers that we have available at the moment is problematic. It's so easy to explain why. Maybe an intuitive explanation is that in quantum mechanics, every particle can be at the same time in different positions. It is in a superposition state. But our classical computers are not designed to address this type of information. And so we have to invent algorithms to circumvent the challenge. Okay, so to take the law of quantum physics and simulate them on a computer which is classical in nature. And that's a challenge. So there are many problems in material science and in chemistry that are unsolvable because we are not able to predict the behavior of quantum matter. Now, for what concerns ultra cold atoms, they are interesting because these are systems which are brought to extremely low temperature. And that's the regime where the effect of quantum mechanics become more relevant. Okay, so it's fair to say that ultra cold atoms, they are very dilute but very cold atomic gases. They're like dilute clouds brought to very low temperature, so that essentially you emphasize the effect due to quantum mechanics. And so these are the systems where the challenges due to quantum effects become more important. And the Bose-Einstein phase transition is probably the paradigmatic example. Is purely quantum mechanical in nature, and the phenomenon of superfluidity, so the motion without any friction, which is also associated to superconductivity. So to have electrical current which do not face any resistance. Those are purely quantum effects, and simulating them with classical computer is challenging. So the approach to tackle the problem is to invent new algorithms. Typically, they are stochastic algorithms, so algorithms that use random numbers. The other approach is to develop quantum computers, and that's also a strategy that is becoming more and more important in the last few years.
To somebody who is aspiring researcher, how do you define your research interests and what are the research problems you are tackling in your group now?
Luckily, here we have a reasonably it's not a big research group, but at least it is a group. It's called the Complex Quantum Matter Group. And so we address several problems because, as the name says, the main issue is understanding the properties of quantum matter. That means systems like ultra cold atoms, but also superconductors. And quantum computers are devices which, of course, are supposed to follow the law of quantum physics. And at the moment, most of these devices are used still for, let's say, a more limited purpose, which is what people call quantum simulation. Okay, so it's not yet a fully programmable quantum computer, but it's a system that you can control well enough, not completely maybe, but well enough so that you can induce some interesting phenomenon that you want to understand, and maybe you are not able to simulate on your classical computer. And among such systems, you have, for example, the quantum annealers that are used mostly to solve combinatorial optimization problems, but also the systems like Rydberg atoms, which are being developed to, in principle, in the long term, to build universal quantum computers. But at the moment, they are ideal platforms to study interesting problems, problems that have always been at the core of the research in condensed matter physics, understanding the role of disorder, of localization, how disorder affects, for example, conduction properties or superfluid properties. Those are issues that are very interesting for us. And my personal, what I'm mostly focused on is on trying to combine or trying to understand these devices using computer simulations. And often we try also to combine them. So an interesting research line at the moment is trying to find hybrid approaches. Okay, for example, you might take data produced by a quantum device. We use, for example, a D-wave quantum annealer, and then use those data to train classical deep neural networks. And so with that neural network, you might then be able to solve a problem that would not have been solvable otherwise.
How do you see AI getting more involved in your research in next 5 years, and how do you see this field emerging in the next few years?
Well, deep learning has already entered almost every subfield of physics, so they are used essentially everywhere. In our, at least in my experience, we always often have to invent wave functions, and so neural networks can be used as an ansatz for a wave function. Sometimes, and I think this is also your experience, we need energy density functionals, and so neural networks might be trained to learn energy density functionals. So there are many computational tasks that we have to solve, and neural networks and deep learning can be integrated, and it has already been integrated. Then on the long term, I probably will get to the point in which, we will be able to make predictions directly training neural networks from data. So we might even bypass the solution of the fundamental equations of nature. Maybe the Schrodinger equation will be less important in the sense that we will have neural networks that predict the output of the experiments that we plan to perform. But still, we will need the data for training the neural networks. And we don't know, probably the data will come maybe from experiments. Maybe we will train neural networks from controllable experiments, maybe performed with quantum simulators. But also, probably we will combine them with data also produced synthetically using classical computer simulations. So, what I see in the mid to long term is that we will integrate data from computer simulations, experimental data, and use those to train neural networks.
Sounds a lot to be expected from this. It's fast changing and we are all adopting our research orientations according to it. So, circling back to your journey now, because we kind of branched out a little bit here on the research front. So, your PhD then was combination of 1 year study at Barcelona and then following the next years in Trento. What are the exposures or the skill sets did you gather around this time that were crucial for your career that followed next?
Well, difficult question. So I learn a lot because I think I've been very lucky because I did my PhD in a very strong, very active research group. So actually, I've been exposed to the frontier of scientific research. Probably I was working in the BEC Center, which is now called the Lev Pitaevsky BEC Center. And probably at that time, it was already definitely one of the most relevant research centers for at least for the physics of ultra cold atoms, and it still is super relevant. So, I mean, I think at that time I didn't even appreciate the this situation. I wasn't truly aware that that was a special place and that I was lucky to have the opportunity to study there. And even the collaboration with Barcelona, again, it was collaboration with one of the research group that it is one of the most important ones in the field of, let's say, quantum many-body physics and computational-oriented quantum many-body physics. So at that time, at least, I think I was a bit naive. I just did my work. I didn't focus much on developing also the soft skills and learning more about the research environment, being more aware of how the academia works. So I think I focused mostly on the technical aspects and the truly scientific aspects. Also because I was lucky to have long discussions with, I mean, very strong scientists that they really enjoyed discussing physics project and even having deep discussions about the law of physics. I was very fascinated by the work of the researcher. I think I had to learn the soft skills on the way. Probably I did it a bit late. Some students learn how to give a good talk very early on, or probably I developed social skills, those skills that you still need them in academia. Actually, I think that I mean working in academia definitely requires you to be a good scientist and to have strong, hardcore technical skills, but social skills also matter. You have to be able to interact with many research groups of different sizes, and working in big environments is not easy. You have to understand the dynamics of big research teams, and you have to be curious about what many other scientists are doing. You have to learn how research is organized, even at the high level. It takes time to learn that. At least it took a lot of time for me. Probably I learned that, let's say, towards the end of the PhD program. Maybe I learned more later on during the first or the second postdoctoral fellowships.
Talking about big research groups, your journey next took you to the group of Matthias Strayer at ETH Zurich, another country again. Matthias Strayer is still leading the quantum computation field. He is a truly renowned leader in the subject area. How was that experience like in moving to this big research group, and what are the questions you were tackling then?
So, well, it was kind of natural because at that time, the group of Matthias Streuer was deeply involved in the physics of ultra cold atoms. Actually, at that time, I think it was one of the main research interests in his group. The focus on quantum computing developed a little bit later. And so I came from a research group which was very strong in the field of ultra-cold atoms. And then I had been using quantum Monte Carlo techniques. And the group of Matthias Troyes was definitely one of the leading groups also for what concerns those techniques. And so it was a good match.
Was it easy to find the match? Was it easy to find this postdoctoral position for you?
Look, to be honest, I think I was lucky also in that case because I was a bit naive. I didn't make many applications. Actually, I made one. I was lucky because Nikolai Prokofiev was for some time visiting the University of Trento, and then he was a visiting professor in the group of Matthias Troyer. So I had a contact. And I asked Nikolai to invite me for to give a talk. It was sort of a job talk, but not officially, I think. And so I got to meet Professor Troyer, and luckily he was interested in the research I was doing. Previously, I was working with my supervisor, Professor Giorgini, and that research on ultra cold atoms, and especially on the BEC-BCS crossover, was really a hot topic. And I think that Matthias was interested in that research. And so then Matthias told me that there was an opportunity to move there and enjoy that opportunity. To be honest, I didn't have many other plans. Actually, I remember I told myself, look, if I can get a postdoctoral fellowship there, I will go and continue with academia because I liked the research they were doing in that group. And I think it made sense for me to continue along that path. But I didn't have a second plan. So maybe had there been no opportunity to move to that research group, I don't know, maybe I would have quit academia because I didn't look around to see. Now I know that around Europe, let's say many, and also in many other places, there are many research groups that do interesting research, and probably research that could have been interesting for me at that time when I was working on those topics, but I wasn't well informed. So my plan was, let's see if I can make this opportunity to appear and get it. Otherwise, I will see, maybe change, get a second, and think about a truly plan B, which is different from the plan A.
I see. But it worked out very well, right?
Yeah.
And that laid you important publications for you also, I guess. And next, also, you didn't stop there. Even though you said that there might have been a plan B, you went on to be the Ludwig Boltzmann Fellow, postdoctoral fellow at ICTP later.
Yeah, that was later on. So I spent 2 years in Zurich at ETH in the group of Matthias Troyer. I think it happened during the second year. I've seen this job opening and I applied. I think I had, at that time, I had the opportunity to stay a bit longer at ETH. But then I got this position, which was a 5 years position at ICTP in Trieste, which is what you mentioned, this Ludwig Boltzmann Fellowship. I mean, at that time, 5 years looked really like a good opportunity. I was used to short-term contracts. And I was also happy, to be honest, to come back to Italy. ICTP, as you know, is a very interesting institute which gives you the opportunity to do research, but also to attend conferences, to organize conferences. It's a very international environment. So yes, I decided to continue. Right? But again, it was at that time, I think I might have already done some further applications, and now I don't remember. But at that time, I was still a bit naive, and I made that application. It worked, so I continued the journey.
Mm-hmm. At ICTP, you were not only organizing conferences and having other roles, teaching and mentoring, you also had your PhD students. You were mentoring PhD students.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, your responsibilities were growing up, increasing, and you were also venturing different paths which can take one person higher up in the academic journey.
Mm-hmm.
What role ICTP played in progressing or advancing your skills as a professional researcher and in the academic journey?
Oh, it was very important indeed because Okay, at ICTP, I had this Boltzmann Fellowship. So technically, I think that was regarded as a senior postdoctoral fellowship. But I have to say that in the institute, the other colleagues, they treated me like another staff member. And I had similar responsibilities, not exactly the same, but as you mentioned, I had the chance to supervise students through CISA or to collaborate with postdoctoral fellows. And indeed, it was a challenge for me because I have to say that I don't know if I was fully prepared for those responsibilities because supervising a student or a postdoctoral fellow is a responsibility. You have to teach physics, but also, I mean, at least I felt responsible for the success of their research projects, and so I had to learn to face and to control those responsibilities. You have to understand how you do the job,
Mhm.
and indeed, for me, it was a good opportunity to grow because I mean, previously I didn't have those responsibilities. Probably I was still, I think I have always been very lucky to be free to do my own research. I wasn't strongly motivated to take more responsibilities. I was happy to do to write my codes, do my simulations, so to do my research, and didn't perceive the importance of learning more skills. And at ICTP, I think I cannot say I was forced to do it, but I mean, I was in an environment where I was expected to do it, actually. Let's put it that way. At first, it felt again challenging. I wasn't sure that I was doing always the right thing, but then I think, I mean, also with the help of colleagues, things worked well. I don't know. At
Yeah.
least I enjoyed the time. So.
Yeah, I just, as I mentioned, I recently talked to Estelinak, your PhD student, and she was really thankful for the guidance that you had provided. So basically, she had no idea that you were not prepared. So you must have done a very good job. And obviously, she is very successful right now. And so that also tells a volume about your work there.
Well, I mean, good students solve the problems of supervisors who are not so self-confident. So I think that, I mean, you know Estelle, she's really energetic, and so of course working with her was a pleasure, and it wasn't difficult at all.
Yeah, you are also very humble about yourself. So it's a lot to learn from you, actually. But you say that you were not prepared at the time. But if what you know now, if you want to go back and advise your younger self then, what would you tell to handle the situation better, or what advice can you give?
So I think that one suggestion that I will give to young, actually, let's say to PhD students is to learn both technical skills, but also the soft skills. So social skills matter also in the academia. It's important to find collaborations and to learn the interests of other scientists, to learn about, for example, about the research grants that are available at all stages. Of course, it's a part of the job that doesn't feel so interesting for, at least it wasn't for me when I was, let's say, my undergraduate studies and also during my PhD years, actually, because we are passionate about physics. We want to solve scientific problems. And that part feels more like bureaucracy. But the truth is that if you want to grow as a scientist, you also have to learn you have to, this bureaucracy is important. Okay? To manage grants, to manage research groups, and to coordinate your own work, but also the work of others. That's an important skill. And so I think if you start early, it's better. Probably the difficulty is that you have, again, to manage your time. So probably you have to find a way to devote the right time to your own projects, but also you have to devote some time to developing collaborations. And that takes time, but what is important is that it's not wasted, even though it's mostly public relations, and sometimes it's just talking, and maybe you're not really solving a scientific challenge, but still you are setting the basis for big collaborations that will eventually become very important to carry on big research projects.
Mhm. At the end of this postdoctoral position, was there any plan B, or you were sure how your career will unfold next?
Look, at that point, I was busy with applications. So I think until that point, I've had been probably lucky and also been naive. I always had one plan, and the plan B was probably quitting academia. At that point, during the postdoctoral fellowship at ICTP, of course, well, it was a long postdoc, so 5 years at first felt like a long period, but towards the end, I had to become busy with job applications, and I had to make many job applications just to land one. Yes, I had many plans. I mean, I made many applications, mostly in the academia, because I thought that at that point I had invested a lot of time to become a researcher, and made sense to try to finish the journey. But again, at that point was a challenge to find a job. So the plan B was, I don't know, the failure of all applications would have been plan B, which would have been, finding a different job.
Mm-hmm. But it didn't happen. And you ended up in the University of Padova.
First for a short period in Padova, and then I moved here in Camerino.
So now you are at the current position, you are an associate professor and also.
No, I'm just an associate professor.
Okay.
Well, here I have some responsibilities like all professors. I do have to, for example, I'm coordinating one of the curriculum of the PhD program. Beyond that, I'm just another associate professor, so I have many teaching duties, but I have a lot of time also for research. And it's a research environment. I had the opportunity to supervise the several students, to have postdoctoral fellows. Luckily, Camerino is playing an important role, especially in the field of quantum technologies. This is one of the main research areas in this university, and I'm involved with that. I've been lucky because here we are also involved with a national, well, it's a consortium PhD program in quantum technologies with the University of Naples and with the CNR INO Florence. So it's a good research environment. I think I'm very busy, and but busy because we have collaborators
In a
at
good sense,
different, in the
yeah.
good sense, yes.
So that sounds amazing. And how big is your group? Are you hiring soon? And if our listeners want to contact you, how can they reach you?
Well, they can just drop me an email. At the moment, we are not hiring. We often hire, I mean, we have openings for PhD students. We have two students who have started in November, and then in next November, we will have probably one or two more students. So at the moment, we don't have calls for, I mean, let's say long-term positions, but if anyone is interested, they can, of course, drop me an email. No, the research group, I mean, well, we have two professors, and then we have researchers, we have postdoctoral fellows, we have students. So in total, it's a reasonably sized group. At least it's the right size for me. To be honest, I had periods in which I had more students. I think that at some point I was supervising four PhD students, and to me it felt like maybe even too much. It's a lot of work because at least if you want to supervise a student as I think it should be done, it takes time. You have to have time to have long discussions with the students. You have to read the research papers yourself and write them also. So I think that that is the right size. I know that many professors manage to build bigger groups, but I think it takes time and also experience because you have to learn how to make indirect supervision. So maybe you are supervising or you are collaborating with a postdoctoral fellow who's senior enough to supervise the work of other younger fellows, and so that. But it takes time to learn that skill.
You mentioned the way I want to supervise. What do you think are the good qualities a supervisor should have?
Look, the main one is trivial, is suggesting an interesting research topic, something which is okay, challenging, but also a topic which is of interest for a big enough research community. Probably that's the main thing, because as a student, if you're lucky enough to start and tackle a problem that turns out to be, well, because the research has to be successful, and that entails both luck and the skills of the student. That's the main thing. Then, of course, a good supervisor should be able to give advice not only on the scientific aspects. For example, being able to put the student in contact with other relevant research groups, for example, to open their way towards postdoctoral fellowships in good research groups. That's also important, and that often comes from the connections that the supervisor might or might not have. Yes. So, and then you have to. Well, probably what I see is that typically the students, the main thing they want is passion. They want to see that their supervisors are passionate about their work. But I think that good supervisors should show their passion, and they should also teach students on how to do science, and also help them to gather their soft skills and their social skills. So.
And thank you for sharing this. And before I let you go, I have some small things, some fun trivia about you, and one last question. So, what are your hobbies?
So I'm still doing some sport activities. Not much, to be honest. Maybe you know that when I was in Trieste, I was still involved with playing soccer. And now I abandoned that. It's a pity. Now I'm just going to the gym 2 to 3 times per week. So I'm trying to stay in reasonably good shape, even though I'm aging like anybody. And more or less that's it. Okay. Luckily, we have the opportunity here in Le Marche region to enjoy the landscape. So we can go to the seaside. We have that the sea is not far away, but we also have the mountains. So it's a beautiful region. And I mean, during the weekends, we enjoy a lot the traveling around, not going far, but visiting different cities here in this region.
What are the languages you speak?
Well, beyond Italian, I try to speak English, as you can hear, and I still remember some of the Spanish that I learned when I was in Barcelona. At that time, I was also able to understand a bit of Catalan, only because it's similar to Italian. I wasn't able to speak it, but I got to the point where I was able to understand a bit. Well, I've been traveling to Barcelona quite often, but I did lose the ability to understand Catalan, and my Spanish also has deteriorated.
But Italians cannot forget Spanish, I think.
Yeah, not completely, but yeah.
Do you read books? And if yes, are there any books that impacted your life that you want to mention for our listeners?
Yes, well, let's say in the last few years, probably my favorite writer has been Daria Bignardi, for no specific reason, to be honest. I'm not able to mention really any book that influenced me beyond those that we mentioned at the very beginning, those by Feynman and Hawking, that made me become interested in physics. I think that when I read Descartes, Cartesio in high school, Cogito ergo sum, that was, I don't know, I think at that point I was also a bit interested in philosophy, but okay, I don't think I can say that it really influenced me. It's just one of the readings that I enjoyed the most when I was in high school.
And who are your role models who had impacted your life? And if you can take their name.
Yeah, so I think as a scientist, probably is my PhD supervisor, Stefano Giorgini. I think he influenced the way I try to solve physics problems. And then, I mean, the environment in the research group in Trento was very, very nice. It felt like a family. And also when I moved to Barcelona, I was in the group of Jordi Boronat, and That was the research group where my PhD supervisor had spent many years a postdoctoral fellowship. So it still felt like family. So I think what I've learned from the researchers that I interacted with at the very beginning was that in the field of science, I mean, of course, you find people that are passionate about physics. I mean, there are also people that try to create family type environments in the workplace. And I think nowadays it's a bit more difficult because academia is very competitive, and so I don't think you can that this familiar environment is everywhere. It's probably now a bit rare. But what I would like to be able to do in the future is trying to carry that on and to create that type of research of family type environment wherever I work.
That will be amazing. That will be an amazing workplace to work for your group, and all the best in doing that. One last question. In your career journey, what is the biggest challenge that you have faced? And what are the strategies that one can implement if they're facing the same challenge today to overcome that?
Yeah, it's difficult to select only one challenge. And maybe I will mention the big one, which is finding a permanent position. That was a challenge for me, for many people, because of course I had to do many applications. And it's not easy to suggest, to give advices on how to increase the chances. I think the only advice is to try to gather as much information as possible. So the problem is that I think that, I mean, in Europe, we have many countries with different rules, and even within the same country, there are institutes with different rules. And then the rules change over the years. So when you do an application, it's good to know what are the rules of the institute you're applying to, and that might help you to make a good applications for even just knowing what you're supposed to write on your CV, how you're supposed to format your CV, which titles have to be included. That is useful information. So, and I mean, information is not, it's free. Of course, it takes time gathering information. But so the only suggestion that I can give is okay, of course, you have to focus on your research and have a good CV, have a good publications, but also knowing how to write applications and what the research institutes might be needing is useful. That is the thing that makes it challenging, because every application has to be modified according to the need of that particular institute and particular university and that particular role. So that only successful people on the other side can share their experience like you did. And thank you for being so candid and sharing your story. And thanks for your time today, Sebastiano. We thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully the listeners also getting inspired in doing research and finding their interest in science. Thank you, Sananda, for having me. It has been a pleasure. I hope the conversation was not too boring. And of course not. Of course not. It's truly inspiring. Thank you for having me. This was my conversation with Sebastiano Pilati, a computational physicist whose journey reminds us that building a career in science is rarely about a single breakthrough. It is about persistence, curiosity, and continuous learning. From choosing between physics and soccer as a young student, to pursuing research in condensed matter physics, and eventually becoming an associate professor leading his own research group, Sebastiano's story highlights the many phases that shape a scientific career. What stands out strongly in this episode is Sebastiano's emphasis on something that is often underestimated in academia: soft skills. Beyond technical expertise, the ability to communicate, to collaborate with others, and navigate complex challenges is essential for building a successful scientific research career. He talked about how young researchers can build a strong foundations during their PhD years and what it takes to eventually lead a research group. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow this channel so that you don't miss the upcoming episodes. And let us know in the comment what resonated with you the most. As always, you can find the links to the people, places, and topics discussed in the description box below or in the show notes.
And remember that DPD Podcast is now available on major podcast platforms, so you can follow wherever you listen. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.